Eschatology ɛskəઃtʒlədʒi is a part of theology concerned with the final events of history, or the ultimate destiny of humanity. This concept is commonly referred to as the end of the world or end time. The word arises from the Greek sigma chi alpha tau omicron sigma eschatos, meaning last, and logy, meaning the study of, first used in English around 1550. The Oxford English Dictionary defines eschatology as the part of theology concerned with death, judgment, and the final destiny of the soul and of humankind. In the context of mysticism, the phrase refers metaphorically to the end of ordinary reality and reunion with the divine. In many religions it is taught as an existing future event prophesied in sacred texts of folklore. More broadly, eschatology may encompass related concepts such as the Messiah, a messianic age, the end time, and the end of days. History is often divided into ages, which are time periods each with certain commonalities. One age comes to an end and a new age, a world to come, where different realities are present, begins. When such transitions from one age to another are the subject of eschatological discussion, the phrase "end of the world" is replaced by "end of the age," "end of an era," or "end of life as we know it." Much apocalyptic fiction does not deal with the end of time, but rather with the end of a certain period of time, the end of life as it is now, and the beginning of a new period of time. It is usually a crisis that brings an end to current reality and ushers in a new way of living, thinking, or being. This crisis may take the form of the intervention of a deity in history, a war, a change in the environment, or the reaching of a new level of consciousness. Most modern eschatology and apocalypticism, both religious and secular, involve the violent disruption or destruction of the world, whereas Christian and Jewish eschatologies view the end times as the consummation or perfection of God's creation of the world. For example, according to some ancient Hebrew worldviews, reality unfolds along a linear path. The world began with God and is ultimately headed toward God's final goal for creation, the world to come. Eschatologies vary as to the degree of optimism or pessimism about the future. In some eschatologies, conditions are better for some and worse for others, e.g., heaven and hell. Eschatology in religions. In Baha'i belief, creation has neither a beginning nor an end. Instead, the eschatology of other religions is viewed as symbolic. In Baha'i belief, human time is marked by a series of progressive revelations in which successive messengers or prophets come from God. The coming of each of these messengers is seen as the day of judgment to the adherents of the previous religion, who may choose to accept the new messenger and enter the heaven of belief, or denounce the new messenger and enter the hell of denial. In this view, the terms heaven and hell are seen as symbolic terms for the person's spiritual progress and the nearness to a distance from God. In Baha'i belief, the coming of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, signals the fulfillment of previous eschatological expectations of Islam, Christianity and other major religions. Buddhism, Christianity. Christian eschatology is concerned with death, an intermediate state, heaven, hell, the return of Jesus, and the resurrection of the dead. Several evangelical denominations include a rapture, a great tribulation, the millennium, end of the world, the last judgment, a new heaven and a new earth, and the ultimate consummation of all of God's purposes. Eschatological passages are found in many places, especially Isaiah, Daniel, Ezekiel, Matthew chapter 24, the sheep and the goats, and the book of Revelation. But Revelation often occupies a central place in Christian eschatology. The second coming of Christ is the central event in Christian eschatology. Most Christians believe that death and suffering will continue to exist until Christ's return. There are, however, various views concerning the order and significance of other eschatological events. The Book of Revelation is at the core of Christian eschatology. The study of Revelation is usually divided into four approaches. In the futurist approach, Revelation is chiefly seen as referring to events which as yet have not come to pass, but which will come to pass at the end of the age and the end of the world. This is the approach which most applies to eschatological studies. In the preterist approach, Revelation chiefly refers to the events of the first century, such as the struggle of Christianity to survive the persecutions of the Roman Empire, the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, and the desecration of the Temple in the same year. In the historicist approach, Revelation provides a broad view of history, and passages in Revelation are identified with major historical people and events. In the idealist approach, the events of Revelation are neither past nor future, but are purely symbolic, dealing with the ongoing struggle and ultimate triumph of good over evil. Hinduism. Contemporary Hindu eschatology is linked in the Vishnavite tradition to the figure of Kalki, the 10th and last avatar of Vishnu before the age draws to a close, who will reincarnate as Shiva, simultaneously dissolves and regenerates the universe. Most Hindus believe that the current period is the Kali Yuga, the last of four yugas that make up the current age. Each period has seen successive degeneration in the moral order, to the point that in the Kali Yuga quarrel and hypocrisy are the norm. In Hinduism, time is cyclic, consisting of cycles or kalpas. Each kalpa lasts 4.18.2 billion years, which is a period of one full day and night for Brahma, who in turn will live for 311 trillion, 40 billion years. The cycle of birth, growth, decay, and renewal at the individual level finds its echo in the cosmic order, yet is affected by vagaries of divine intervention in Vishnavite belief. Some Shaivites hold the view that Shiva is incessantly destroying and creating the world. After this larger cycle, all of creation will contract to a singularity and then again will expand from that single point, as the ages continue in a religious fractal pattern. Islamic eschatology is documented in the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad regarding the signs of the Day of Judgment. The Prophet's sayings on the subject have been traditionally divided into major and minor signs. He spoke about several minor signs of the approach of the Day of Judgment, including Abu Hurairah reported that Muhammad said, "If you survive for a time, you would certainly see people who would have whips in the hands like the tail of an ox. They would get up in the morning under the wrath of God, and they would go into the evening with the anger of God." Abu Hurairah narrated that Muhammad said, "When honesty is lost, then wait for the Day of Judgment." It was asked, "How will honesty be lost, O Messenger of God?" He said, "When authority is given to those who do not deserve it, then wait for the Day of Judgment." Umar ibn al-Khattab, in a long narration relating to the questions of the angel Gabriel, reported, "Inform me when the Day of Judgment will be." He remarked, "The one who is being asked knows no more than the inquirer." He said, "Tell me about its indications." He said, "That the slave girl gives birth to her mistress and master, and that you would find barefooted, destitute shepherds of goats vying with one another in the construction of magnificent buildings." Before the Day of Judgment there will be great liars, so beware of them. When the most wicked member of a tribe becomes its ruler, and the most worthless member of a community becomes its leader, and a man is respected through fear of the evil he may do, and leadership is given to people who are unworthy of it, expect the Day of Judgment. Regarding the major signs, a companion of the Prophet narrated, "Once we were sitting together and talking amongst ourselves when the Prophet appeared. He asked us what it was we were discussing. We said it was the Day of Judgment. He said, "It will not be called until 10 signs have appeared: smoke, Dajjal, the creature, the rising of the sun in the west, the second coming of Jesus, the emergence of Gog and Magog, and 3 sinkings, one in the east, another in the west, and a third in the Arabian Peninsula." Judaism. Jewish eschatology is concerned with events that will happen in the end of days, according to the Hebrew Bible and Jewish thought. This includes the ingathering of the exiled diaspora, the coming of Jewish Messiah, afterlife, and the revival of the dead Tzaddikim. In Judaism, end times are usually called the end of days, a phrase that appears several times in the Tanakh. The idea of a messianic age has a prominent place in Jewish thought, and is incorporated as part of the end of days. Judaism addresses the end times in the Book of Daniel and numerous other prophetic passages in the Hebrew Scriptures, and also in the Talmud, particularly Tractate Avodah Zarah. Zoroastrianism. Frashokhareti is the Zoroastrian doctrine of a final renovation of the universe, when evil will be destroyed, and everything else will be then in perfect unity with God. The doctrinal premises are good will eventually prevail over evil. Creation was initially perfectly good, but was subsequently corrupted by evil. The world will ultimately be restored to the perfection it had at the time of creation. The salvation for the individual depended on the sum of thoughts, words and deeds, and there could be no intervention, whether compassionate or capricious, by any divine being to alter this. Thus, each human bears the responsibility for the fate of his own soul, and simultaneously shares in the responsibility for the fate of the world. Eschatology. Equivalents in science and philosophy. Futures studies and transhumanism. Researchers in futures studies and transhumanists investigate how the accelerating rate of scientific progress may lead to a technological singularity in the future that would profoundly and unpredictably change the course of human history, and result in Homo sapiens no longer being the dominant life form on Earth. Astronomy. The Sun will turn into a red giant in approximately 5 billion years. This red giant sun will have a maximum radius beyond the Earth's current orbit. Life on Earth will become impossible due to a rise in temperature long before the planet is actually swallowed up by the sun.